In the vibrant heart of downtown, where the towering buildings stood like sentinels, each etched with the stories of ambition, dreams, and resilience, Angela Harper moved with an undeniable grace. Her stride was purposeful, exuding a confidence so profound that it could quiet even the most cacophonous sounds of the bustling city around her. In a place where the clamor of honking horns and chatter filled the air, she was a beacon of tranquility. Angela represented the very essence of success, a living testament to the power of perseverance and innovation. As the dynamic CEO of Harper Innovations, she had orchestrated an extraordinary transformation of her company, which had blossomed from a modest startup into a symbol of hope and progress in a town that was often shrouded in skepticism and uncertainty. The narrative of her journey was one of hard work, sleepless nights, and an unwavering belief in her vision, a tale that inspired many who knew of her. Her eyes sparkled with the fervor of 1,000 suns, radiating a contagious energy that drew people in. They were not just any eyes. They held a fierce commitment to uplifting others and illuminating the path forward for those who found themselves lost in their struggles. Today, as she navigated the daily rhythm of the streets, she engaged directly with the community. With a stack of flyers in her hand, she eagerly approached passers-by, her enthusiasm infectious. Each flyer was not merely a piece of paper, but a carefully crafted message brimming with hope, a promise of opportunity and empowerment, especially for the youth who wandered through life feeling overlooked and uncertain about their futures. With every interaction, Angela transformed what could have been a simple promotional effort into a genuine conversation. She spoke of the programs her company offered, designed to equip young minds with the skills they needed to thrive in an ever-evolving world. As she handed out each flyer, she didn't just distribute information, she shared dreams, igniting aspirations in those who might have given up on pursuing their goals. She understood the power of connection, and she was determined to create pathways for the next generation. In that moment, amid the towering skyscrapers and the backdrop of a busy urban landscape, Angela Harper wasn't just a business leader. She was a mentor, a visionary, and a guiding light for those who dared to dream of a better tomorrow. The city around her may have been filled with doubt, but through her relentless efforts, Angela was resolutely weaving a tapestry of hope, one flyer at a time. The neighborhood was a canvas of monochrome, painted in shades of gray and muted tones that seemed to envelop every building and street. The skies often hung heavy with clouds, casting shadows that made the weary brick facades appear even more tired and lifeless. It was a stark contrast to the vibrancy that Angela brought with her, as if she were a splash of bright color in an otherwise drab and colorless world. Her presence was a breath of fresh air, infused with optimism and the promise of something new and invigorating. As she walked down the cracked sidewalks, her heart raced with a mix of excitement and trepidation. The residents watched with narrowed eyes, their expressions an intricate tapestry of suspicion and intrigue. Their curiosity was piqued by the unfamiliar face in their midst, a woman who, unlike them, radiated confidence and determination. She was there not just to pass through, but to make a difference, to bring hope and possibility to a community that had all but forgotten what it felt like to believe in brighter days. Some of the hesitant neighbors accepted her flyers with tentative smiles, their fingers grazing the colorful paper as if it might shatter the delicate shell of their reticence. The flyers were adorned with inspirational messages and details about community gatherings, aimed at uniting them in a collective effort to revitalize their surroundings. They stood as a beacon of change, inviting others to partake in the blossoming possibilities that Angela envisioned. Yet, for every tentative acceptance, there was a cautious retreat. Many residents hastily closed their doors, the sound of locks clicking echoing in the stillness. It was clear that the idea of change, even one that shimmered with hope, was daunting to some. They were comfortable within the confines of their familiar routines, unyielding to the idea that the world outside might hold something worthwhile. To them, Angela represented a disruption, a challenge to the status quo, and they instinctively recoiled from what they did not understand. But Angela was undeterred. She understood that transformation was seldom met with open arms. The road to progress was often fraught with skepticism, yet it was a journey worth embarking on. With each passerby, whether they welcomed her or turned away, she remained steadfast, fueled by the hope that one day the monochrome palette of the neighborhood would burst forth with an explosion of color, bolstered by the community she longed to unite. And within that vibrant vision lay the potential to redefine not only their surroundings, but their very lives. As the day continued its gradual decline towards evening, casting long shadows across the bustling streets, a palpable sense of unease began to settle over the crowd. What started as a quiet murmur of discontent soon began to evolve, spreading like wildfire through the gathering throngs of people. Voices that once spoke in hushed tones now crescendoed into a chorus of frustration, echoing off the walls of the nearby buildings. Concerns about rising prices, broken promises, and dwindling quality of life spilled forth, each individual adding their own grievances to the growing wave of dissent. Amidst this growing uproar, the atmosphere shifted as a figure stepped out from the local police station, his presence both commanding and authoritative. Clad in a crisp uniform, the officer clutched a clipboard tightly to his chest, as if it were a shield against the mounting tension in the air. As he surveyed the scene before him, he took a deep breath, steeling himself for the interaction that lay ahead. Clearing his throat, he raised his voice above the murmur of the crowd, cutting through the cacophony with a clarity that demanded attention. "Ma'am," he addressed one woman who was passionately advocating for a cause, her arms animatedly gesturing as she distributed flyers. "You're not allowed to distribute these here." His tone was firm but not unkind, a mixture of professionalism and authority. "You need a permit," he added, emphasizing the regulations that governed public assemblies and distributions in their town. The crowd paused, a momentary silence enveloping them as they processed the officer's words. Eyes turned towards the woman, waiting to see how she would respond to the authoritative interruption. Would she comply, or would she stand her ground in the face of the law? The tension in the air shimmered like heat waves, the outcome hanging delicately in the balance as the officer stood resolute, clipboard in hand, ready to enforce the rules that governed their civic space. Angela's eyes narrowed, narrowing with an intensity that could cut through steel, and she produced the crumpled paperwork with an exaggerated flourish that was both dramatic and defiant. "I do have a permit, officer," she declared, her voice unwavering and steadfast as the concrete beneath her stilettos, which clicked authoritatively against the pavement. The bustling city around them blurred into a background noise of life, but in this moment, it was just the two of them, her determination clashing against the officer's staunch resolve. The officer, a stout man with a no-nonsense demeanor and a badge that gleamed under the midday sun, remained unmoved by her fervent declaration. "A complaint has been filed," he interrupted, his tone flat and uncompromising. "You're causing a disturbance." His words fell like heavy bricks between them, each syllable constructing a divide that Angela struggled to bridge. Angela's heart sank, feeling as though the weight of the world rested on her shoulders. With a heavy heart, she was handed a ticket that felt like a cold slap against her skin, accompanied by a court summons that threatened to unravel the very fabric of her intentions. What had begun as a noble effort to help her community now spiraled into a legal quandary, a maze of bureaucracy that overshadowed her passion. Her mind raced as she processed the surreal turn of events. She had only sought to bring people together, to invigorate the neighborhood with joy and camaraderie through her initiative. Yet here she stood, surrounded by the cacophony of an active street, grappling with an unexpected barrier to her dreams. The ticket in her hand felt more than just a piece of paper. It represented not only the potential crumbling of her efforts, but also the struggle against a system that seemed indifferent to the vibrant life she was trying to foster in her community. Despite the bleakness of the situation, a flicker of resilience ignited within Angela. Perhaps this was just another challenge to overcome. She would not let this setback extinguish her spirit. Determined, she resolved to fight not only for her right to help, but for the voice of the community that had rallied behind her. Armed with the knowledge of her permit, her convictions steeled by the camaraderie of her neighbors, she prepared to navigate this labyrinth of legalities, ready to reclaim her place as a champion for her community. The courtroom was a cold, sterile place, an environment steeped in formality and rigid protocol, its barren walls echoing the muffled whispers of hushed conversations and the sharp clack of polished shoes against the marble floor. The scent of old wood and faintly lingering dust clung to the air, creating a sense of stagnancy that was a stark contrast to the warmth and vibrant energy that emanated from Angela. Her presence was like a ray of sunshine cutting through the drabness, radiating an infectious enthusiasm and heartfelt commitment to her cause. Judge Edward Miller, a man known throughout the legal community for his stern demeanor and even sterner rulings, sat at the front of the room, his brow furrowed in concentration as he peered over his glasses at her with an expression that was difficult to read. He commanded respect, his very posture suggesting authority, but there was a touch of something else, a hesitance perhaps, as he regarded the young woman before him. His reputation preceded him, a weighty siren that quietly warned of his unwavering support for the status quo and his notorious lack of patience for those who dared to disrupt it. It hung in the air like a dark cloud, threatening to overshadow the hopeful atmosphere that Angela tried to cultivate. As Angela stood confidently before him, her hands animated as she spoke, she could feel the eyes of the courtroom fixated on her. With meticulous care, she presented her case, her voice steady and sincere, weaving a narrative about community empowerment that was both heartfelt and urgent. She spoke passionately of her mentorship program, the lives it had already transformed, and the potential it held to uplift even more individuals in need. Yet, with each point she made, she sensed the judge's expression growing more skeptical, the creases in his forehead deepening and his eyes narrowing as he scrutinized her every word. The weight of his skepticism was palpable, a silent challenge that loomed over her like a looming shadow. Angela fought against the rising tide of doubt that threatened to engulf her as she continued to share her vision, determined to pierce through the layers of indifference surrounding the judicial process. The world outside this stark courtroom was waiting for change, and she was here to advocate for it, hoping that somehow she could kindle a spark in this seemingly unyielding figure, urging him to see her dedication for what it was, a genuine commitment to building a better future for those who felt lost in the shadows. "Your permit is irrelevant," Judge Miller declared, his voice laced with palpable anger as he brought his gavel down with a force that resonated throughout the courtroom, akin to a powerful hammer striking an anvil. The sharp sound reverberated off the walls, casting an immediate hush over the assembled crowd. "You are disrespecting the norms of this neighborhood." As his words hung in the air, the atmosphere in the room became charged with tension. People shifted in their seats, their expressions a mix of surprise and disapproval, while others averted their eyes, unwilling to confront the harshness of his judgment. The judge, with his steely demeanor and unwavering gaze, began to outline the consequences of Angela's actions, levying a hefty fine that seemed disproportionate to the alleged offense. His voice resonated with an authority that bordered on tyrannical, echoing with the weight of his bias and preconceived notions about what was acceptable. But amidst the oppressive atmosphere, Angela remained unbowed. She stood tall, her posture defiant and resolute, as if she were a lighthouse standing firm against a ferocious storm. Her heart surged with a quiet strength. She knew that her work was far from a disturbance. In fact, it served as a vital lifeline for many in the community, a source of hope and connection in a world often overshadowed by negativity. With her head held high, she turned and walked out of the courtroom, each step a silent declaration of her resolve. The echo of Judge Miller's judgment lingered behind her, trailing in her wake like a shadow, yet it couldn't dim the flame of her spirit. As she crossed the threshold into the fresh air outside, the weight of his derision began to lift, replaced by the resolve to continue her important work and fight for what she believed in. She knew she was more than just a target of his anger. She was a beacon of change, and she would not be silenced. Days later, the town hall buzzed with fervent anticipation as the community prepared for the highly awaited economic development meeting. The atmosphere was charged with excitement and a hint of anxiety as townsfolk trickled in, filling every nook and cranny of the spacious hall. Conversations buzzed around the room, with people exchanging ideas and hopes for the future, their voices overlapping in a cacophony of optimism and concern. Everyone was eager to hear about the plans that would inevitably shape their lives, plans that had the potential to breathe new life into the town and reignite its dormant economy. Judge Miller sat rigidly in the front row, his usually composed demeanor disrupted by the weight of his thoughts. His brow was furrowed deeply, the lines on his forehead etched with a mixture of anxiety and regret. His mind raced as he prepared himself for the inevitable moment when he would come face to face with Angela again. Memories flooded back to that fateful day when he had belittled her, dismissing her ideas and effectively stifling her voice. Now, he couldn't shake the feeling of dread that gnawed at him, knowing that he would be forced to confront the consequences of his actions. And then, just as the murmurs began to settle down, she appeared. The crowd fell silent, all eyes turning toward her as she was announced as the keynote speaker. Angela, the very woman he had disrespected just a few short months ago, stood before the town with an air of confidence and authority that seemed almost regal. Her presence commanded attention, and the townspeople could hardly take their eyes off her. Gone was the uncertain woman he had once dismissed. In her place was a formidable leader, poised and ready to present her vision with passion and clarity. As she stepped up to the podium, Judge Miller felt a mix of admiration and shame wash over him. The contrast between Angela in that moment and the version he had belittled was staggering. She exuded warmth and intelligence, her voice steady and filled with conviction. The townsfolk listened intently, hanging on her every word, captivated by her ideas and the possibilities she painted for their collective future. Miller's guilt festered as he realized the weight of what he had done, and he couldn't help but wonder if today would be the day he finally offered her the apology she deserved. As she began to speak, a profound hush descended upon the room, enveloping the audience in a cocoon of anticipation. Each person held their breath, fully captivated by the presence of the woman at the front, whose voice soon resonated like a warm melody, filling the expansive hall with compelling stories of Harper innovations. This was not just a company. It had evolved into the very heartbeat of the local community, nurturing both dreams and livelihoods. With eloquence and passion, she recounted the journey of the organization, detailing how it had not only generated countless job opportunities, but had also cultivated an environment where aspirations could flourish. Harper Innovations had become synonymous with hope and resilience, standing as a pillar of strength for families and individuals trying to carve out a better future. As she delved deeper into her narrative, she highlighted her mentorship program, which she described as a beacon of light, guiding hundreds of young people through the murky waters of uncertainty. This initiative served as a critical bridge, connecting those caught in the grip of poverty to pathways of prosperity and success. Through stories of personal transformation and triumph, she illustrated how this program had empowered youth, instilling in them the confidence and skills necessary to thrive in today's competitive landscape. Meanwhile, Judge Miller sat in the audience, his demeanor shifting as his thoughts spiraled. He could feel the heat creeping up his cheeks, flushing his face, and his heart quickened its pace with every passing moment as the weight of his earlier judgments became painfully clear. The realization of his mistake began to settle in, like a heavy stone in his gut. He had underestimated the significance of Harper Innovations and its impact on the community, his arrogance overshadowing the truth that was now laid bare before him. The stories she told were not just words. They were lifelines that had transformed lives, and in that moment, he recognized the profound error in his previous assessments. The atmosphere in the hall buzzed with inspiration and hope, contrasting sharply with the turmoil rising within him. The applause was deafening as Angela concluded her speech, the sound reverberating off the walls like a thunderous storm that echoed the passion in her words. The town stood as one, a united front of admiration and gratitude, acknowledging the profound impact she had made on their community, the lives she had changed, and the hope she had instilled in their hearts. Each clap resounded with appreciation for her dedication, her unwavering commitment to the betterment of their lives, and the vision she had laid out for a brighter future. The atmosphere in the room was electric, alight not only with applause, but with a palpable sense of hope and respect that filled the air like a warm glow. Judge Miller felt himself shrinking under the weight of it all, his usual composure beginning to crack as he saw the collective acknowledgement of Angela's remarkable achievements. He shifted in his seat, overwhelmed by the undeniable truth that her eloquence and passion had not only captured the audience, but had also stirred something deep within him, a sense of both inspiration and introspection. A fellow council member leaned in closer, their voice barely above a whisper, detailing the extent of Angela's contributions, the tireless hours spent advocating for underprivileged families, her relentless efforts to improve local education, and her ability to rally the community during difficult times. Each word painted a clearer picture, reinforcing the depth of her impact and leaving him with no doubt that she was indeed a force to be reckoned with. The council members' enthusiasm was infectious, further amplifying the admiration surrounding Angela and making Judge Miller acutely aware of the immense responsibility they all shared in supporting such a visionary leader. As the applause swelled anew, Judge Miller's mind raced with thoughts of his own role in the community. How could he contribute as significantly as Angela? Thoughts of past decisions and future possibilities flitted through his mind like a slideshow. Each moment marked by Angela's influence, each choice a reflection of the collective aspirations of the town she had inspired. The room buzzed with conversations about her plans for the future, and as her supporters rallied around her, he was left contemplating the transformative power of leadership and the enduring legacy one individual could forge through sheer determination and vision. The meeting ended, and the crowd dispersed, leaving Angela and Judge Miller alone in the vast, echoing emptiness of the hall. The air was thick with the remnants of conversations that had just taken place, whispered hopes and fervent debates still lingering like ghosts in the corners. As the last of the attendees filed out, the doors closed softly behind them, sealing the two of them in this expansive space that now felt almost intimate in its solitude. Judge Miller took a few hesitant steps towards Angela, his demeanor betraying a mix of uncertainty and remorse. His hands fidgeted at his sides, as though searching for some invisible anchor to steady his wavering composure. His gaze was fixed firmly on the polished wooden floor, avoiding her piercing eyes. "Mrs. Harper, I owe you an apology," he began, his voice trembling like a leaf caught in the wind. Angela turned to face him fully, her expression inscrutable, masking any emotions that ran beneath the surface. The silence stretched between them like a taut wire as the words he struggled to find hung unspoken in the air. "I didn't know. I didn't understand," he continued, his voice trailing off into an awkward quiet. The vulnerability in his tone was palpable, each word laden with the weight of unacknowledged prejudice and the burden of regret. She studied him for a moment, her gaze intense and unwavering, as if she were trying to read the depths of his soul. The room felt charged with the tension of their confrontation, the echoes of the earlier meeting completely fading away. Then, unexpectedly, she offered him a small, serene smile that softened her features and illuminated the shadows of distrust that had begun to form around them. "It's not where we come from, Judge Miller," she said softly, her tone almost soothing. "It's what we stand for that truly matters." Her words lingered in the air between them, a gentle reprimand wrapped in a profound truth, a powerful lesson that reverberated against the cold walls of the hall. They were words crafted from experience, from pain, and from an unwavering strength that she had nurtured throughout her life. Judge Miller nodded slowly, the realization dawning on him like the first light of dawn after a long night. His eyes, which had earlier been filled with uncertainty, now reflected a newfound respect and something deeper, a promise to change. Despite his previous shortcomings and misjudgments, he understood that this moment was not just an apology, but an awakening. The story of Angela Harper was far from over. He knew he had been but a small, flawed player in a much larger narrative of growth, resilience, and the power of community. As they stood together in that empty hall, the echoes of the past began to transform into a chorus of hope for the future, one where understanding and compassion could bridge the gaps that division had created. In that quiet moment, amidst the fading echoes of the crowd, both Angela and Judge Miller felt the stirring of a new chapter, one that held the promise of connection and a shared commitment to justice and equality. As the days turned to weeks, The town saw a transformation in Judge Miller. His rulings grew fairer, his demeanor softer. He attended community events with a genuine interest in the lives of those he served. The fine remained, but it was a small price to pay for the lesson Angela had taught him. He found himself speaking of her mentorship program with admiration, advocating for its expansion, and even offering his own time as a mentor. The town, once divided, began to mend. The whispers of prejudice grew quieter, replaced by stories of success and hope. The youth of the town looked up to Angela, not just as a mentor, but as a symbol of what could be achieved with determination and courage. They saw in her a reflection of their own potential, and in Judge Miller, they saw the possibility of change, even in the most unexpected of places. The courtroom was no longer a place of fear for those who faced Judge Miller. It became a place of fairness, where justice was served with a side of empathy. The townsfolk watched as he took the bench with a newfound understanding, his eyes no longer clouded by preconceived notions, but clear and focused on the truth before him. And as for Angela, she continued her work, unfazed by the adversity she had faced, her resolve stronger than ever. The town grew together, bound by the shared belief that no one should be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Harper Innovations flourished, bringing in new businesses and revitalizing the area. The mentorship program expanded, reaching further into the community, offering a helping hand to those who needed it most. And Judge Miller, once a symbol of the status quo, became a catalyst for change, proving that even in the most entrenched of places, growth and understanding could take root. The story of Angela Harper and Judge Edward Miller became a local legend, a tale of redemption and the unyielding spirit of progress. It was a reminder that sometimes it takes a moment of humility to realize the power we hold in our hands and the responsibility that comes with it. And as the town moved forward, hand in hand, they knew that they had the strength to face whatever challenges lay ahead, for they had seen the change that could come from one woman's refusal to be silenced and one man's willingness to listen.